Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a room thick with tension, where the air hums with the weight of unspoken secrets and the echoes of shattered lives. This is no ordinary courtroom drama or late-night thriller. It's the United States Congress, a place where democracy's guardians are meant to hold the mighty accountable. But on that fateful day in September 2025, during a blistering oversight hearing before the House Judiciary Committee, something far more profound unfolded. Representative Thomas Massie, the sharp-tongued libertarian from Kentucky, locked eyes with the newly minted FBI Director, Kash Patel, and unleashed a barrage of questions that cut straight to the heart of one of America's most enduring scandals, the Jeffrey Epstein case. What followed was a masterclass in institutional deflection, a stark revelation of elite impunity, and a clarion call for the public to rise against the shadows that protect the powerful. Today, in this deep dive, we'll unpack every searing moment, every dodged answer, and every implication that lingers like a storm cloud over our justice system. Strap in, because the truth isn't just stranger than fiction. It's a reckoning we can't afford to ignore. Let's set the stage properly, for context is the key that unlocks these vaults of secrecy. Jeffrey Epstein, the financier turned infamous sex trafficker, didn't just prey on the vulnerable. He ensnared the elite in a web of depravity that spanned continents and corridors of power. From his private island retreats to Manhattan penthouses, Epstein's operation allegedly funneled underage victims to a roster of high-profile clients, men who wielded influence like a weapon. When Epstein met his end in the Manhattan jail cell in 2019, officially ruled a suicide, though whispers of foul play still echo, the floodgates should have opened. Files, testimonies, flight logs, the evidence was there, tantalizingly close to sunlight. Yet, years later, as Patel sat under the glare of congressional lights, the FBI's handling of those files remained a black box, shrouded in redactions and bureaucratic fog. Massie, ever the bulldog, wasn't there to mince words. He demanded answers about the FBI's possession of documents that named names, over 100,000 pages of them, including FD 302 forms, those meticulous summaries of victim interviews that paint pictures too vivid to dismiss. And at the center of it all, at least 20 powerful men, according to reports from the files themselves. Billionaires rubbing shoulders with CEOs, politicians whispering in backrooms, a royal prince entangled in the fray, and entertainment moguls whose stars dimmed only in the court of public opinion. These weren't abstract accusations. They were etched in official records, backed by victim testimonies that screamed for justice. So why, Massie pressed, had no further indictments followed? Why did the machine of American law enforcement grind to a halt when the gears were oiled by the very elite it was meant to ensnare? Director Patel's responses were a symphony of evasion, a performance honed in the halls of intelligence and politics. Picture this. Massie leans forward, his voice steady as steel, laying out the specifics. Director, these FD 302's detail connections to trafficking, minors, no less. You've got the files. What's the holdup? Patel, a man whose career has danced between the CIA's shadows and Trump's inner circle, shifted in his seat. He admitted point-blank that he hadn't personally reviewed every document in the Epstein trove. Not all 100,000 pages, not the unredacted depths where the real rot festers. Instead, he deferred to the institution. Multiple DOJ and FBI offices had pored over them, he said, and found no prosecutable evidence. No credible leads to chase, no threads to pull that wouldn't unravel into nothingness. It was a deflection so polished it gleamed under the C-SPAN cameras, a classic bureaucratic pirouette. But Massie wasn't buying it. He pushed harder, highlighting how these reviews were conducted by the same agencies potentially complicit in the cover-up. After all, if the FBI's own files implicated its overseers or allies in intelligence, who polices the police? Patel's refrain, no credible evidence, hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire, obscuring the flames of truth beneath. And in that moment, the hearing transcended Epstein. It became a referendum on trust, on whether America's guardians could ever truly guard against their own. Diving deeper into the highlights of this clash, let's illuminate the firestorms that erupted. First, those FBI files, over 100,000 pages strong, a digital mausoleum of missed opportunities. They reportedly finger at least 20 powerful men as links in Epstein's trafficking chain. Billionaires whose fortunes could buy silence. A royal prince whose crown offered diplomatic armor. Top executives whose boardrooms doubled as green rooms for vice. These weren't wild speculations from tabloids. They were corroborated by victim statements, flight manifests from the infamous Lolita Express, and logs from Little St. James, Epstein's island of horrors. Yet, Patel's testimony painted a picture of impotence. The files exist, yes, but they're locked behind court orders and national security redactions. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle grilled him on this, with Democrats like Ranking Member Jamie Raskin accusing the FBI under Patel of stonewalling releases that could expose not just Epstein's ghosts, but Trump's own documented ties to the financier. Republicans too sensed blood, with Massie leading the charge on transparency. The director's admission that he hadn't delved into the full archive himself. It was a bombshell, underscoring a leadership more reactive than resolute. How can you steer the ship of justice if you haven't charted the waters? Then there was the gut-wrenching matter of the victims, the human collateral in this elite Game of Thrones. In a hearing laced with outrage, it came to light that victims' names had been accidentally released in public filings, a clerical blunder that exposed survivors to renewed trauma and potential retaliation. Imagine the horror: women and girls, already scarred by betrayal, seeing their identities splashed across legal dockets because the FBI couldn't safeguard the very information it extracted from them. Patel faced a torrent of criticism here, not just for the leak but for the systemic callousness it revealed. Victims, in the eyes of these agencies, weren't partners in justice. They were sources, footnotes in FD 302s, their pain quantified as credible or not by faceless analysts. Massie hammered this point, his Kentucky drawl laced with fury. These aren't intelligence assets, Director. They're people, children even, who deserve respect, not redaction. The room fell silent, the weight of institutional inertia palpable. This mishandling wasn't isolated. It echoed the broader mishandling of Epstein's case, where Ghislaine Maxwell, his chief enabler, faced trial while her clients skated free. The hearing laid bare a DOJ FBI apparatus more adept at protecting sensitivities than pursuing suspects, sparking bipartisan calls for independent oversight. Outrage boiled over on social media that night, with hashtag Epstein Files trending as survivors and advocates demanded, if not now, when? Lurking beneath these exchanges was the specter of intelligence ties, a thread Patel tugged at gingerly, as if afraid it might snap. Epstein's connections to the CIA and other agencies have long been the stuff of conspiracy whispers, but the hearing brought them into sharper focus. Former officials, in leaked statements and past testimonies, had alluded to Epstein as belonging to intelligence, a phrase that conjures images of honey traps and compromat operations. Was his trafficking ring a mere side hustle, or a covert tool for leverage over the powerful? Massie probed this relentlessly. Director, if Epstein was an asset, doesn't that explain the glacial pace of investigations? Are we protecting operatives or perpetrators? Patel acknowledged the allegations but waved them away as insufficiently investigated. Another layer of no credible evidence. Yet, the implications chilled the chamber. If Epstein's network intertwined with spycraft, then sealing files wasn't just about privacy. It was about preserving the veil of national security. Critics, from civil liberties watchdogs to congressional firebrands, argued this was the ultimate deflection. Wrap scandal in classified wrapping paper, and poof, accountability vanishes. The hearing exposed how intelligence exemptions create black holes in justice, where victims' rights collide with state secrets, and the public is left guessing at the shadows. As the gavel fell and the cameras dimmed, the true genius of Massie's confrontation emerged. It wasn't just about Epstein's ghosts. It was a scalpel slicing into the anatomy of power. Let's unpack the key insights, those profound takeaways that ripple far beyond one hearing. Start with institutional deflection versus accountability, a dance as old as Washington itself. Patel's playbook was textbook. Emphasize prior reviews, cite lack of personal involvement, and pivot to process. But Massie called the bluff, forcing the director to confront the absurdity. How can an FBI head, sworn to uphold the law, admit ignorance of his own files? This wasn't oversight, it was abdication. It spotlights a deeper malaise. Self-policing in agencies was skin in the game. When the DOJ and FBI assess their own credibility, conflicts abound. Remember the OIG reports on Epstein's jail death? They flagged negligence but stopped short of conspiracy. Here, the hearing amplified the echo, eroding public trust brick by brick. If the watchdogs are winking at the wolves, who guides the flock? This deflection isn't incompetence. It's a mechanism, engineered to sidestep uncomfortable truths and preserve the status quo. And in an era of polarized politics, it thrives, dividing scrutiny along party lines while the elite laugh from the shadows. Elite immunity and secrecy form the next pillar of this rotten edifice, and the Epstein saga is its crown jewel. From Bill Clinton's logged flights to Prince Andrew's settlements, the case strips with impunity. The hearing crystallized how deliberate it all is, sealing affidavits, redacting names, suppressing statements under the guise of victim privacy, though leaks suggest it's the perpetrators who benefit most. Massie railed against this, quoting file excerpts that named traffickers in black and white. Yet Patel invoked court orders, a legal labyrinth that lawmakers dismissed as navigable with political will. This isn't accident, it's architecture. An entrenched system prioritizes the powerful, royalty insulated by extradition treaties, billionaires by high-powered lawyers, politicians by mutual assured destruction. It fuels cynicism, whispering that justice is for the little guy, while the apex predators roam free. The rule of law? A quaint ideal, bent and twisted to shield those who fund its facade. Public outrage, from #MeToo marches to viral threads, underscores the fracture. When elites are untouchable, the social contract shreds, leaving a nation adrift in doubt. But the power of documents and official records, that's where the hearing's thunder truly cracked. Over 100,000 pages aren't chaff, they're dynamite, with FD 302s as the fuses. These summaries, born from victim interviews, contradict the official line of no evidence with surgical precision. They name traffickers, detail encounters, map the network from Palm Beach to Paris. Yet the gap between allegation and action yawns wide, a chasm of selective transparency. What gets revealed? Flight logs cherry-picked for headlines. What stays buried? The connective tissue linking Epstein to his enablers. Massie wielded these docs like a prosecutor's brief, forcing Patel to swim. This isn't oversight failure. It's willful blindness, a failure to convert intelligence into indictments. It points to design, withhold by default, release under duress. In a digital age, where leaks can topple empires, this hoarding feels archaic and sinister. The hearing begged the question, if not these files, what will it take? A whistleblower's gambit? A hacker's dawn raid? Until then, the power imbalance persists, documents gathering dust while victims gather scars. Epstein's intelligence connections add a labyrinthine twist, complicating the narrative with spycraft's cold calculus. Statements from ex-officials. He belonged to intelligence. One hyperbole. They hinted at Epstein as a cutout, his vices a veil for geopolitical games. Massie pressed Patel on this, evoking Maxwell's trial where CIA links surface like icebergs. If true, protection wasn't negligence. It was necessity, shielding assets and operations from scrutiny. Investigations stall not from lack of evidence, but from higher edicts: classify, compartmentalize, contain. This raises existential queries. Is our justice system sovereign, or subordinate to the invisible hand of intel? The hearing peeled back that layer, revealing how covert ties entwine with crime, constraining probes to protect the realm, or its rulers. It's a complication that demands sunlight, yet invites more shadows, leading the public to pass whispers in the wind. At the heart of it all beats the human cost, victim marginalization, a profound disconnect that the hearing laid bare like an open wound. These survivors, girls lured with promises, broken on altars of ambition, aren't statistics. Their souls, their trauma, a testament to systemic indifference. Treated as information sources. Their FD-302s mined for leads, but their lives left in limbo. The accidental name release? A final indignity, exposing them anew to harassers and hackers. Massie evoked their voices, his questions laced with empathy rare in Capitol's marble halls. Patel's responses, clinical and detached, amplified the chasm: bureaucracy over humanity, procedure over pain. This insensitivity isn't accidental, it's cultural. Law enforcement viewing victims through a lens of utility. The harm compounds, PTSD flares, trust erodes, justice feels like a myth. The hearing was a megaphone for reform. Mandatory victim advocates, sealed proceedings with teeth, a cultural shift from extraction to empowerment. Until then, the human toll mounts, a silent scream against the machine. The limits of oversight and transparency emerged as the hearing's philosophical core, a mirror to democracy's frailties. Massie's exchange with Patel was a microcosm. Direct questions met with ambiguity, oversight thwarted by obfuscation. Even in Congress, the People's House, embedded agencies wield strategic ambiguity, like a shield, vague on details, firm on denials. This reveals the uphill battle: lawmakers versus leviathans, transparency versus the national security state. Achieving accountability? It's Herculean, demanding leaks, lawsuits, public fury. The hearing underscored the asymmetry. Power protects itself, while oversight begs for scraps. Yet, in Massie's persistence lay hope, a reminder that pressure points can crack stone. Finally, the clarion call: public vigilance and pressure, the engine of true change. Institutions won't self-reform. Vested interests chain them to secrecy. Accountability blooms from scrutiny. Media spotlights, viral campaigns, electoral thunder. The hearing's close urge just that: question narratives, demand releases, vote with fire. Epstein resonates because it's us versus them, the people against the protected. Relentless pressure dismantles protections, forges reform, honors victims. It's not optional. It's obligatory. I unwrapping this tapestry of truth. Remember, the Epstein hearing wasn't an end, but a spark. From Massie's queries to Patel's dodges, it illuminated rot in our republic's core. Demand more, files unredacted, elites unshielded, justice unyielding. Stay vigilant, for in the light of exposure lies our salvation.